Okay, New York City. Let's go ahead and knock this out right off the bat. New York City, last night, if you were paying attention, which most people were, we found out this Mamdani guy won the Democrat nomination to be the next mayor of New York City. Now, let me pause before we get into him and how this kind of thing happens. And let me just explain something we've talked about before. You may not care for New York City. Maybe you've never been. Maybe you've been and you hated it. Maybe you hate all cities. All those things are totally understandable. Completely understandable. I'm not trying to talk you out of that. But at least understand this. America's cities and America's rural area, they're all part of America. And New York City in particular is our most important city when it comes to finances. There's all kinds of, there's just, for a lot of reasons, New York City is extremely important. So maybe you're watching me right now from rural Arkansas. I'm not suggesting you go to New York City. You might hate it. But understand that New York City matters because it's on our billboard, meaning internationally. People will look at the things that happen in New York City and we will take that as, or they will take that as, well, that's what America's like. For instance, London. How often do you see these reports out of London? Do you see London on social media? How often have we brought up things? What's going on over there in London? But we have these gangs. We have that. You take that as being the UK, don't you? Of course you do. It's human nature. So do I. If New York City implodes more than it already is, it's going to make the entire country look bad. And I care about that a great deal. So now let's talk about this freak who may very well be the next mayor.
The mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism, to stop mass ICE agents from deporting our neighbors, and to govern our city as a model for the Democratic Party.
Yeah. He has many public statements, crazy public statements destroying the NYPD. This is a man who's talked about packing the subway full of homeless people. Look, if he's mayor, it's going to be very, very bad. How does this happen? Why does this happen? Well, there is a coalition that we are fighting against as a nation right now. And because of the steps the Democrat Party has taken over the decades, we will have to fight against this coalition for a very long time. This coalition is majorly powerful. And here's what the coalition is. There are the upper crust, highly college-educated elites, college-educated white people for the most part. They are bred with American hatred. It is engraved in them. The longer you spend on a college campus, for the most part, the more communist you are going to be. So these people have been indoctrinated firmly in the fact that this country sucks. And that's why everybody should get to come here and just pillage the place, because this evil country deserves that kind of a thing. That's one part of the coalition. The other part of the coalition is the disloyal foreigner. The disloyal foreigner that Democrats and Republicans have brought in by the million over the decades. Why would Democrats bring in 20 million new foreigners in just 4 years under Joe Biden? And that's not even talking about the tens of millions they brought in beforehand, just the 20 million under Joe Biden. Why are they all about it? Why are they now protecting these people from deportation? Well, you just watched what happened in New York City. Democrats understand that the bread and butter American, the red, white, and blue American, wherever he may be, New York City or Montana or anywhere else, is going to reject their disgusting, despicable communism, and he's going to reject their goal of burning down the country. But the foreigner, he's fine with it. Hand him a welfare check. Hand him a little bit of power. Hand him a little bit of this. Bring in as many of those people as possible. Buy them off with a $500 Visa card. And you haven't just imported foreigners, you've imported a voting army that will march to the polls and put the communists in power forever. That is why they love immigration. By the way, illegal and legal. Mass legal immigration is just as bad as mass illegal immigration. By the way, in case you're wondering, Jesse, has he lost his mind? Is he going too far? Here's one of the ads the guy ran.
बदलने के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ रेंट फ्री बसेस यूनिवर्सल चाइल्ड केयर और सस्ती ग्रोसरीज के जरिए पर आपको एक सवाल पूछना चाहता हूँ तुमने कभी किसी को वोट किया
Why do you think that is? This comes back to a conversation you and I have had so many times before. Maybe this guy, as much as it pains me to say it, maybe he now does accurately represent what New York City is. Just like Ilhan Omar, which we've discussed many times before, Rashida Tlaib, these types. We get mad when they say these horrible anti-American things, and we say we should kick them out of Congress. Why? They are representatives, and they accurately represent their area. The problem is not the specific commie. The problem is the demographics of the country have radically changed. We have changed our own people, just destroying their minds in college. And we've brought in a lot of others. And this guy, if elected, can you imagine the things he'll do with his power? He's talking about arresting foreign leaders if they come to town.
And Mayor Mamdani, would you welcome Prime Minister Netanyahu to New York City for whatever he comes for, given the US is not a signatory to the ICC, so he can travel to the US, unlike a lot of other countries. Would a Mayor Mamdani welcome Benjamin Netanyahu to the city?
No. As mayor, New York City would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a city that our values are in line with international law. It's time that our actions are also.
How could they do that? How could they elect this man? Maybe that's what New York City is now. We don't like to accept these things. And it pains me because I love the place. Maybe he is a very accurate representation of what New York City has become, as painful as that may be. And look, when you think about New York City, I bet you money the NYPD comes to your mind. I bet you it's one of the top 5 things that pop in your mind when you think about New York City, especially after 9/11, all the heroism, about the NYPD, the largest, most powerful, highly trained police force on the planet. Well, surely New Yorkers love the NYPD, right? I don't know. The new Democrat nominee said this about them.
Are you for defunding the police? Are you for a serious reform that people can see on the ground?
I am in favor of defunding the police.
We don't like the accurate representations we see of certain areas of our country, but that doesn't change the fact they're accurate representations. If I look in the mirror and I'm cupcaking over my boxer shorts, I may not like the fact that I've gotten fat, but it's not the mirror that's the problem. The mirror is accurately reflecting what I have become. I know that's sad. I know that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. I love energy. Let me explain. Why do we reach for that cup of coffee at 2, 3 in the afternoon? Because we're running out of gas. And you want to feel good again, right? Like you just got out of bed in the morning. Do you have any idea how much chalk will change your life? Natural herbal supplements from chalk. You, as a man, take a male vitality stack for 90 days. You'll be mad at all the time you weren't taking it. And these are all natural herbal supplements. Ladies, they have a female vitality stack. I've had ladies in their 60s email me and tell me, I feel so good, I don't even want to nap anymore. Naturally, no more pills. Stop sticking needles in your arm. Natural herbal supplements. Here's what you do. They're having a big summer savings thing. Chuck.com/JesseTV. All I'm asking is 90 days. All right? All right.
Kamala Harris, light years ahead of Donald Trump as it relates to qualifications, as it relates to her overall resume, and as it relates to the fact that she was a lot younger. Everybody said that they wanted to get rid of Joe Biden because he was too old. Then you had a younger, qualified, non-felon candidate, and somehow the people still chose the old white man.
Yeah, I can't imagine why these people are broke. Joining me now, the host of the wonderful John Phillips show, my buddy John Phillips. Okay, John, Democrats, as weird and crazy as Republicans can be at times, Democrats appear to be completely lost, dead broke, and unbelievably unpopular. Why?
They claim that we're the election deniers because Donald Trump talked about the irregularities in the 2020 election. But when you look at what they're doing and you're looking at what they're saying, they don't seem to realize they just lost the last election. They think they won, and they're acting like they won, and they're behaving like they won, and they can't understand why the rest of the world doesn't understand that they've won. And they're just moving right along ahead with all of these unpopular positions and unpopular candidates that they ran with in 2024 and lost with like nothing ever happened. You go back and you look at all these anti-Biden books that are out right now, or the books that are explaining about his senility and dementia and all of those things. And the conclusion that they come to as to why Kamala Harris lost the election is that she never had a reason for running. She was running because Joe needed someone to stand in for him. She was running because the Democrats didn't have time for an open primary. But she could never answer the question about the why. And you look at what they're doing right now, and they still don't have a why. They know they hate everything that Donald Trump does, but beyond that, they have nothing.
Okay, so I guess I'm having a hard time understanding that mentality because everything you just said is right. But I mean, John, if a fly comes in here right now, God forbid, and lands on my face, and I smack at it a couple times, the fly will either move on or try to land on another part of my body. Now, this is a fly, but it has the basic instincts to know that's an unsafe thing. I should do something different. But the entire Democrat Party doesn't seem to know that. I mean, like the tranny stuff, at least in women's sports and things like that, every single poll shows it's the most unpopular thing in the world. We had one national Democrat say a word a little bit against it. Immediately, he got whipped and put back in the corner, and no one said another word since. Are they so captured they can't change?
They are. And it happens on issue after issue. I actually read Nancy Pelosi's book about power that just came out. I was the one. And in that book, the largest chapter is about China. And she fancies herself as being the foremost expert on China in the United States Congress. And this has been an issue that she's been quite consistent on throughout her political career, where she's tough on the CCP. It's not only a national and international issue for her, but there's a large Chinese population in her district here in California. So it's something that she's paid attention to for a long time. And she wanted to make sure that China was kicked out of the World Trade Organization, that we didn't give them most favored nation status, and let's use trade rules to go after them, to get them to stop their bad behavior domestically and manipulating currency internationally. And all of the beefs that Donald Trump has with China, basically Nancy Pelosi shares them and claims that it's her number one issue. Well, when Donald Trump gets in, he gives her everything that she's been asking for and more. And what does she do? She comes out against him and she trashes him all over social media because it's Donald Trump. And hatred of Donald Trump is due north for them. And as long as you're hating on Donald Trump, nothing else matters. Well, if that's what you believe in and that's your worldview, you believe in nothing. And if you believe in nothing, then why should anyone trust you with power?
John, is it that Democrats have left behind middle America, normie American, or is it their base? Because you bring that up and you're 100% right, but every poll amongst Democrats, when Democrats are polled now, they all show that they want Democrats to fight Trump harder than they're currently fighting him. You need to fight Donald Trump even harder. So the people who keep Democrats in office are demanding opposition to Trump at all times, no matter what position he takes. If he believes in saving a sick puppy that's on the highway, Democrats feel they have to electorally come out and oppose him. So it's the insane Democrat base that's screwing the Democrat Party. Could I justify that?
Well, political coalitions are always evolving. And basically, for a very long time, they relied on Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal coalition to get them through these national elections. And when Donald Trump came along, Donald Trump had appeal to blue-collar workers in ways that other Republicans, let's say Mitt Romney or John McCain or others, did not have. So he peeled off a portion of their coalition. We saw that happen in particular this last time with a lot of young men, particularly Asian men, Latino men, black men, certainly blue-collar whites already started moving to Trump's column long before. And the Democrats replaced them by getting the Lincoln Project types. They got a lot of these college-educated whites that used to vote Republican because I guess they felt they had to out of class or education or whatever, but who were fundamentally not down with the cause. And we did a swap. And that player to be named later that we had to give up for the blue-collar voters was the college-educated whites, the Lincoln Project guys. Well, those people give the worst advice on planet Earth. If those people tell you, to bet on the Lakers, you can rest assured that they're going to lose by double digits. And that's now part of their crowd. And these people are basically inoculated from a lot of their bad policies because they live behind fences. They have jobs that have not been downsized so far. Maybe with AI they will. But they have people that can put up with poor government because they have the money to find alternate means. And then they have the people at the very bottom who rely on the government and belong to these SEIU and all of these groups that are in bed with the Democrats, and they lost everyone else. Well, they have people who are very dogmatic in their belief systems, and the Lincoln Project people, they're not going to change because something's not working or something's unpopular. That's just not fundamentally who they are. And the people at the bottom of their coalition, well, they're just doing what the union bosses tell them to do. And that's just not enough for a majority. The reason that Donald Trump was able to win the election was he peeled off more from their side than they peeled off from our side. Well, okay, elections are a game of math. If you're going to get back into the majority, you need to find some other group to peel off. And they haven't done that. And based on what they're doing, they're not going to do that.
John, finally, Gavin Newsome very clearly saw the anti-ICE protests as an opportunity to launch himself into being the Democrat nominee in 2028. I'm not a Democrat. To me, he looked like a clown, and it all looked very obvious, but there are a bunch of clowns who vote for Democrats. Did it work?
It did. There was just a poll that came out that showed him in second place in a Democratic primary for president, right behind Kamala Harris. And at this point, she's polling at number one, not because they're in love with her. They're not. They chose Grampy Joe over her the last time there was an open primary. It's just they spent $1 billion promoting her, and she has the highest name ID by far. So Gavin Newsome, if you look at it in a different way, might be polling the strongest in the Democratic primary right now. And basically what he did and what Karen Bass did is they were able to nationalize these local subjects. They nationalized the fires. They blamed Donald Trump. They nationalized the ICE raids. They're saying, well, it's Donald Trump that is separating families, and I'm going to be the one that volunteers to get arrested to stop it. And making sure that people vote a straight party line, and you nationalize these elections and you make everything us versus Donald Trump, is very good for blue state Democrats who are unpopular in deeply blue states or in Democratic primaries. That formula works right now. However, there are consequences to that. If you get everyone to stop splitting their ticket and you get everyone to look at every race on the ballot as a national race, well, then fine. What are you supposed to do if you're a Democrat running for the Senate in a red state? What do you do if you're one of those guys in Georgia? What do you do if you're one of those people in Arizona or Nevada or any of the other states that Donald Trump carried that have to win and have to get people who voted for Donald Trump to turn over and vote for them in an off-cycle election or a down ballot race? If Gavin Newsom is successful, and I believe he's a sociopath, so let's start there. But if he's successful at getting people to stop splitting their ticket and just vote the straight party line because that benefits him, I think it will benefit his standing in California, and it'll benefit his standing in a Democratic primary. But he, in the process, will slit the throats of all of those red state Democrats hoping to win re-election to the U.S. Senate.
You love to see it. Thank you, John. Come back soon, brother. I love to sleep. I just love it. But we live in a world where sometimes the stresses of life mean you lay down, your head hits the pillow, and you know what I'm talking about. Your brain doesn't turn off. Well, what do you do then? I know there are 1,000 things you can buy to help you sleep. You can go to the freaking gas station. Oh, this will put you right to sleep. And they work. They will put you to sleep. How do you feel when you wake up? Horrible, don't you? Groggy, miserable. That's the difference between Dream Powder from Beam and everything else. Dream Powder is natural. Bunch of natural things like magnesium and reishi and melatonin. It's a cup of hot chocolate. Mine is cinnamon chocolate. I have a cup of hot chocolate when I want to make sure I sleep. I sleep like a baby and I wake up feeling ready to go. Go feel like that every day. Shopbeam.com/Jesse Kelly.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand?
He's mad. Let's talk to Buck about it. Joining me now, somebody who doesn't really need any introduction, obviously. It's Buck Sexton. Everyone knows who Buck is now because he's such a big deal. Hey, Buck, Donald Trump's upset, and I kind of made the point in the open that he got this upset with Putin and Zelensky too. For Trump, everything should be a business deal. Why don't we just do a deal? Why are we fighting? And I think he gets frustrated with these places. They don't want a business deal. They want to fight. Does that make sense?
Oh, when you're talking about the Middle East, that's definitely the case. I think that, and there's other places around the world where that's true too. I mean, I remember from some of my time over there, Jesse, in the old GWAT days, where I would talk to forward deployed, Marines like yourself, or even people who were on the PRT, the Provisional Reconstruction Team, which is like the State Department guys. And long story short, they're like, hey, if you guys stop shooting each other, meaning in Iraq specifically in this case, if you guys stop shooting each other and like putting IEDs out there and acting like maniacs, you'll have clean drinking water and electricity, and we'll build your schools. So like we all get it. We should all stop shooting each other. They're like, nah, we're gonna keep shooting each other. That's just the reality, unfortunately. And I mean, that was the cold, hard truth that we saw over in the Middle East. Like, it's like, you guys are the same religion, but a different denomination, like Sunni Shia. You really hate each other that much? Oh yeah. Oh, they do. So yeah, it's something that I appreciate Trump's frustration on it at some level. Obviously, in this case, it's Israel, it's Judaism and Islam in the case of Iran. But I appreciate also that he's showing everybody, look, he expects a certain approach to things when he's involved, and even if you're on our team as an ally, like he's still going to call you out if he thinks that you're causing a problem. So even Trump, I think, sees that it's going to be a little bit of a tough sled to get these two to stop shooting missiles at each other.
Buck, let's switch gears a little bit here. I'm worried. I have this worry because of how down the Democrat Party is. It's not just that they're down, they're going down. Their popularity's even worse. They can't stop loudly campaigning on every issue that Americans hate. They appear to be a suicidal party that'll be completely defunct about 5 minutes from now. But obviously, you and I both know, we've been at this long enough, that's not how it works. At some point, they'll rebound, they'll come back. Mm-hmm. What's that look like? How?
Well, I think I don't want you to have to take out your womp womp noise over there in the studio, but we just saw not only the worst major party presidential candidate. I mean, I think Kamala was substantially worse than John Kerry, substantially worse. I mean, I think she's truly the worst candidate that we've seen in our lifetime. That made it through a primary, or not even, sorry, she didn't make it through a primary, that ended up as the candidate. And it came after the mass fraud of Biden's whole reelection, he doesn't have dementia thing. And you change a couple of 100,000 votes over, 4 or 5 states, and she's the president. Everyone needs to remember this. Like, yes, Trump won a resounding electoral college victory, and it's amazing. And, the good guys won, the cavalry, came over, the Comanches had to flee, like, yay, it's all great. They almost, by the numbers, pulled off Kamala as president after having to pull Dementia Joe. So that is my way of answering your question as to, will they come back? They absolutely will. I think they misplayed their hand on the issue of immigration specifically. I always knew that was going to be where they try to dig in, but they needed to wait until we got beyond the tattooed MS-13, like, human trafficking dirtbags, and started picking up, people that are just here illegally, and maybe some grandmas, some abuelas, et cetera, and start sending them. They didn't wait. They went right for, how dare you kick this non-American gang member and like narco trafficker out of the country. It's like, you guys are psychos. So and the other thing is, I thought they would start to move away from the gender identity theory stuff, the trans stuff, right? And they haven't. They're actually doubling down on that, which is remarkable to me. So I think that the area where they're going to probably get their footing again, Jesse, is going to be something that's a combination of healthcare. And if the deportations ramp up, they're just going to try to make people cry about it a lot. But I also think most Americans feel like they got really scammed, particularly under Biden with the border. And so maybe that won't work. But healthcare is just an excuse for communism that, pulls on people's heartstrings. You know what I mean? Like universal healthcare, the Bernie stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's probably where I see them rallying. Or if we get an ugly correction in the markets, they'll freak out and say it's Trump's fault. Those are the plays that I can see.
Buck, why not let go of the tranny stuff? Because the immigration stuff, look, you can argue they're doing it wrong, and of course they are, but it does make sense. Mass importation of foreign barbarians with no value system whatsoever is perfect for the Democrat Party. Those are going to be Democrat voters forever. But the tranny stuff is not popular. It's the most minuscule portion of the population, so you're not going to get extra voters from it. And it's not like those people have any money. They're a bunch of freaks. Now, if we're just talking about, gay stuff, there's all kinds of billionaire gay people out there, but the trannies don't have any political weight whatsoever. So looking at this purely political, why not just let them go?
So I've actually truly thought about this a lot. And I wrote about this. There's a chapter on this in my book that's coming out, Jesse, which will have to come onto your show at the end of this year to sell.
I didn't even do that on purpose.
Thank you. Shameless plug. But no, really, the issue of the trans ideology stuff, I see it in 2 ways. One is if they win on this, they win on everything. And that is to say, if they can actually get their way on something that is truly a binary right and wrong, which is, men are men, women are women, they're not the same thing, and society should treat them differently. If they can get people to say, yeah, that 220-pound guy with like a big beard, but now wears a dress and has long hair and puts some eyeshadow on, like that's a chick and he should compete. If they can get society to go along with that, they can get society to go along with absolutely anything, right? It's like this is, as you know, Jesse, from maybe your book on Anti-Communist Manifesto, the communists, even if they knew that you didn't believe as a person living in a communist country like Soviet Union, the things that you said, mouthing the preferred slogans was demeaning, right? So even if they knew that you knew that the grain harvest was actually horrible and there's mass starvation, it's shut up, say the grain harvest is great. Because then they own you, because you're just part of this, you're part of the propaganda machinery, even if you know it's untrue and you're just bowing to force. So that's point 1 on it. And then the quick point 2 on it is that there's a force multiplier effect of the trans agenda, which is, it's not about the trans individuals. It's about the medical establishment, which, as we realize, I think this was what really shocked parents too. Like the American Academy of Pediatrics is like, yeah, like if you want to, castrate your 12-year-old or whatever and turn him into a girl, go for it. I mean, chemically castrate. You look at these things, you say, hold on a second. Once you've gotten a parent to abuse his or her child on behalf of an ideology, I think it is impossible for 99% of them to ever come back into the light of truth and to recognize what they've done, because they're going to want to say, well, I did the right thing. I did with the American Academy of Pediatrics. So it's really about everyone around the trans individual or the trans ideology that gets sucked into it, and that tries to suck other people into it too. And then, like I said, they own you, right? I mean, especially if you've done something irreversible to your kids on behalf of this, you're never going to. I know it's pretty dark, right? But I think that is what is going on, and that's why they won't back off of it, because it's just a way of having absolute power over people.
I like that. That's smart. I'm going to steal that and use that. I'm going to say that on my own show, not give you any credit for it. He is Buck Sexton. Thank you, my brother, as always. I appreciate it. All right. Well, like we said, foreign policy is very complicated. Combat is very complicated. As I've mentioned a million times, in war, the first casualty is the truth. That's an old saying. And last week was wild. I mean, this week has been wild. Israel, Iran, America. What's the reality of it? It's hard to wade through everything, but one of the best ways to do that is talk to somebody who was actually there in some form or fashion. And Josh Hammer was. Of course, Josh Hammer joining me now, my buddy Josh Hammer, author of the book Israel and Civilization. Excuse me. Okay, Josh, the floor is yours. What happened last week?
Well, Jesse, I was there. My young family was there. My wife, our 6-month-old baby, and I. We were there when the war started. We were there for purely personal reasons, actually, for my wife's cousin's wedding, and we had a birthday party. I had a book event, but personal stuff. And on the 4th or 5th night we were there, I suppose it was, the sirens went off at 3 a.m. and the rest has been history. So for a few days, we were running in and out of bomb shelters. And the thing to bear in mind, Jesse, is that it's usually there will be an advance warning on your cell phone, like a loud siren noise will go off to say be near a bomb shelter. Not always, sometimes. But when the sirens in your local vicinity in the town actually go off, you have 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes to drop whatever the heck it is you're doing and essentially run for your life to the safe room in the house, the bomb shelter. So you can imagine how this was starting to wear on us. Again, our 6-month-old baby was there. This is no joke, right? So the 4th night that we were there after the war started, I got reports of a neighboring town. We were staying in the Tel Aviv suburbs, a neighboring town. One of the missiles evaded the air defense and had a direct hit on the bomb shelter, and 2 people in the bomb shelter actually tragically died. So they did everything they could, and the bomb shelter did not protect them. So I said, that's it. We're getting the heck out of here. I did a little research. I live in Florida, as you know. I came across a program that Governor Ron DeSantis had partnered with to get Americans out. I got in touch with an amazing Florida state senator named Jay Collins, who was on the ground in Israel and Jordan getting Americans out. So it was a 3.5-day journey. We went from Israel to the Jordanian border, up to Amman, the capital of Jordan, then to Cyprus, then to Tampa, where Governor DeSantis met us there. He actually asked me to join him at a press conference there at the airport last Friday. And then we got back to South Florida. So it was quite an ordeal, to put it mildly, there. And I saw some things that I don't necessarily particularly care to see again. I saw one factory that took a direct hit from an Iranian ballistic missile. It was on fire with billowing black smoke, the likes of which, that's an image that you will not forget for a long time. I mean, Israel had become an active war zone, right? The IDF and Mossad did a lot of amazing stuff in those first days of the war inside of Iran, but Israel itself had become a war zone, and it was time to get our family out. So thank God we're home safely, and I'm really happy to be here talking to you, Jesse.
Okay. 1, I'm glad you're safe, my brother. 2, that is a story that is going to be told in your family for quite some time. So that's at least something. I need you to describe for me, though. I'm going to ask some details because people are curious. The bomb shelters, are they in people's homes? Are they large? Are they small? How many people go to these bomb shelters? Because this is a world, I ask it, Josh, I mean, you lived it, but this is a world we can't understand here in America. Sure. And I want you to lay it out for us.
Yeah, sure. No, great question. So The first thing to bear in mind, Jesse, is that most of the new construction in Israel, to be clear, the old buildings that existed 40, 50 years ago, they weren't built with bomb shelters. It wasn't really a thing. So maybe they were able to kind of add it on after the fact there. But the newer buildings typically have one room of the house that is extra fortified. I mean, extra layers of concrete there. You know, if you knock on the wall, you will essentially notice the difference between that room and the other rooms there. So we were staying primarily at a family friend's house in the broader Tel Aviv suburbs. And one of the bedrooms on the ground floor in the basement was the safe room. So that is where we evacuated. But a couple Sundays ago, we were at a neighboring town where my wife's grandmother lives. She lives in one of these older buildings, and they had to turn a large common area room on the ground floor of the apartment building into the safe room. And there's a lot of elderly people there. So for instance, my wife's grandma's in a wheelchair. I mean, think about that. That's really logistically difficult to get an old woman in a wheelchair from the third floor down to the safe room with the sirens. It's really awful, honestly. It's frankly an awful reality. The final thing that I think is worth noting about this is these bomb shelters were typically built, and this is another thing that I think the American media has not really covered. These bomb shelters were built with these Hamas-fired rockets and mortars in mind. They were not necessarily built with Iranian hypersonic ballistic missiles flying 2,000 miles in mind. That is an apples to oranges comparison. These two things are simply not the same thing. So that is why there have been Israeli casualties, is that the bomb shelters, tragically, they're typically doing their job. Thank God for that there. But the air defense is letting too many missiles through, and some people tragically are dying, which again is why I want to get out. But it's no way to live, Jesse. It is simply no way to live your life there. Unfortunately, tragically, I think for a lot of Israelis, it's kind of just the mentality. They know this is the case. They deal with it there. But as a non-Israeli and as an American there, it was pretty harrowing to deal with for a few days.
Okay, Josh, the mood of the people there when it comes to, I don't know if this whole thing's over. Frankly, I have my doubts because Iran hasn't changed their stance on things. Israel is perfectly aware that Iran, setting that aside, that I doubt the whole thing's over. What is the mood of the Israeli people with all this? Because this has been going on for quite some time now.
So
Iran, by the way, I should clarify, I'm talking the war itself. I'm talking about Gaza. I'm talking about Iran. I'm talking about all this stuff. Where are they at with all this? Are they sick of it? Are they all in? Where are they?
Right. So part of the whole debate, Jesse, for the past couple of weeks has been who started this? What is the starting point of the war? I've heard some people say this is Israel's war of aggression in Iran. With respect, that's just not really accurate, right? I mean, at a bare minimum, the current war against Israel started on October 7, 2023. Hamas received lots of training and funding from Iran there. Hezbollah, Houthis, all the various Iranian tentacles have been trying to go after Israel. Indeed, they've been going after American ships and going after Americans themselves. I mean, the U.S. Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, Lebanon, killing 240 plus Marines back in the early 1980s came from an Iranian proxy, Hezbollah. So to me, the beginning of Iran's war against what they refer to as the little Satan of Israel and what they refer to as the big Satan of the United States, this war essentially starts when the regime is formed with the hostage crisis that ended the Jimmy Carter presidency back in 1979 there. So that really is how far back this goes. Now, having said that, with that context, and given the fact that this has been going on for so long, Iran's been chanting death to Israel, death to America for my entire life, essentially. It's definitely my entire adult life there. Iran is not a particularly contested issue among the Israeli political spectrum. And I'll give you an example. So in 2016, I was there with a law school delegation, and we met with a very far left member of the Israeli parliament. This guy was so far left, literal socialist. He was actually supporting, Jesse, I kid you not, Bernie Sanders in the primary back then in 2016. Even this guy, who was a Looney Tunes Marxist socialist, even this guy was actually very sober and hawkish on the Iranian issue. Iran is simply not a contested issue. Israelis know that Iran is an existential threat, at least a nuclear-armed Iran there. So this is a very, very popular operation that Netanyahu has done there on the home front. There's very little doubt about that, I think.
Okay, Josh, I'm not switching gears here, but let's talk about the political, the environment in Israel, because it is a divided country, just like ours is. Netanyahu, the current government, is it unpopular? Is it popular? What are the reasons behind it?
Right. So even though Iran is not a particularly contested issue, Netanyahu himself is a deeply polarizing, divisive figure in Israel, the same way that Donald Trump is a deeply polarizing, divisive figure. They're actually shockingly similar, Jesse. If you look at the biographies of Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, there are more similarities, frankly, than differences. They've both been prosecuted in unprecedented ahistorical lawfare. They're literally dragging Netanyahu into court, Jesse, during this war for alleged bribery charges. It's the exact same thing. The deep state, the prosecutors, the judges, they're all in there against him the exact same way that Jack Smith and the whole Democrat lawfare complex was against Donald Trump here. The similarities are frankly outright shocking. But this probably will boost Netanyahu's domestic political standing, if I had to guess, again, for the very simple reason that Iran has been the sword of Damocles hovering over the Israeli people for decades. And again, there are plenty of issues in Israel that are very hotly divided. The Palestinian issue is definitely an issue where Israelis are mixed minds, although increasingly they reject the so-called two-state solution after October 7th. The issue of the Haredim, the so-called ultra-Orthodox, entering the IDF, the military draft, that is a very hotly debated issue. There are plenty of issues over there that are hotly debated, but the Iranian issue is just really not one of them. Again, maybe the Arab Israelis are different, but the Jewish Israelis, I think, no matter whether you are right, center, left, whatever, understood that this regime cannot get a nuclear weapon because they say they want to commit a second Holocaust, and they've given no indication whatsoever that they will not do that if they get a nuclear weapon there. So I think it's a very popular operation in Israel. I think Netanyahu probably stands to benefit politically from it.
Josh, I'm glad you and yours are safe, my brother. Welcome back home. Take care. All right. It's a wild, wild world, right? Wild way to live. Say, always be 2 minutes from a bomb shelter. All right, it is time to lighten the mood. And look, what's better than watching Donald Trump beat up on the American press? This kind of stuff just makes my day.
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, you know, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSDNC. They're all. And frankly, the networks aren't much better. I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people. And the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times. But the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace.
All right. I'll see you tomorrow.